Day 2 and 3, in my opinion, is the toughest part of your journey in quitting smoking. You don't have to do something complicated. You can do something easier. Hello and welcome to another episode of Rising from the Ashes. This is our 6th video, and this week we crossed a mini milestone. We have reached 50 subscribers. It is very, very gratifying, and thank you to everybody who subscribed. It is your support which keeps the channel going. So please do subscribe and please do share with your friends if you find this content valuable. I think last week we really spoke about what happens on the first day of quitting smoking. Today, logically, we're going to continue from there and talk about what to expect on day 2 and 3. Now, I said in my previous video, and please do watch the video which I have put the link above if you've not already. I said in the previous video that day 1 is relatively easy because you're working on euphoria, you're doing a new thing, you're still excited because your body is fully not realized what you're getting into. Day 2 and 3, all of those advantages kind of vanish. Day 2 and 3, in my opinion, is the toughest part of your journey in quitting smoking. And I'll tell you why. I think there are 2 or 3 things happening here. I think the first thing I talked about, your excitement is really kind of gone down and tapered. Now you've done the first day and you've got a little bit of happiness from it, but now you have to do that again. So you're starting over. Second thing is now the physical addiction is really starting to come to fore. Your body has not had nicotine for more than 24 hours. So all of the physical effects which you expect from withdrawal, headaches, irritability, nausea in case of some people, insomnia in case of some people, inability to sleep, all of these are slowly starting to affect you. And this is kind of the most powerful point, and that's why I'm trying to think how best to portray it. So your mind goes like this, right? Your mind goes like, hey, you've proven your point. Look, you've stopped smoking for 24 hours, such a big achievement. And if you're a regular smoker, this probably would have been the longest you would have gone without smoking. It would have happened in a flight or something like that. So your mind kind of says, hey, look, this is probably a personal record in recent times. You've never kind of not smoked for 24 hours. Well done, bravo. Now let's get back to, regular order of business. And that is kind of, your kind of addicted mind trying to trick you back into smoking by saying this itself is a big achievement and that, you should kind of smoke as a reward. So it kind of becomes almost like a perverse thing saying, hey, let's celebrate the fact that you've not smoked for 24 hours by smoking. So all of these effects starts happening and they become like really, really hard to, let's say, it is really hard, right? Like most of the work we're going to do and most of the things I'm going to talk about when in the journey to quit smoking, we are not going to use willpower a lot. And I'll kind of do an episode separately on willpower and why that is not the most important determinant of quitting smoking. But usually we don't use willpower a lot. Usually we try to kind of, let's say, use some psychological hacks. We try to use the power of habit and so on. But in this next 2 and 3 days, I think we do need a lot of willpower, and I would kind of urge you to not use this time also to stop, having sweets or whatever else might test your willpower, because for the next couple of days, you're going to need a lot of willpower. And this is probably the only time you're going to need willpower. And so the first thing obviously is in these 2 days, just hold on. I talked about in an earlier video that smoking really works in 3s. So 3 days, 3 weeks, and 3 months all produces different kind of, let's say, milestones. So going to 3 days is going to be a huge milestone because on the 3rd day, your physical withdrawal symptoms would have peaked. After that, your physical symptoms are only going to get better. So keep that in mind and use your willpower whenever you feel like smoking, and at least try to hold on till day 3, right? And once we come to day 3, there'll be another video and we'll wind up work through what to do day 4 onwards. But for now, in day 2 and 3, your goal should be to get to day 3 and use as much willpower as needed. Apart from that, let's kind of talk about a few things you can do and some of the tips. I think in my earlier video, I mentioned I really try to keep the first couple of days of quitting in a weekend or when you're traditionally typically not working. If day 2 happens to land on one of those days, I would suggest planning a longer activity, maybe a 4-hour hike or doing some yard work, which will take most of your afternoon, or cooking like an elaborate dinner or lunch, which will take a lot of your time, which will give you a sense of, let's say, achievement and reward, and B, it'll kind of take your mind off smoking, and you're doing a high involvement activity. So for those periods, it'll take your mind off smoking as well. So however, I know that it's probably not possible for many people that you're not working. So there is something which I want you to start doing from day 2 and day 3 onwards. And this is something which we'll do probably till day 90, which is like, the end of when you successfully stop smoking. In this time, whenever you get an urge to smoke, I want you to do 2 things. First, I want you to design a breathing exercise. It can be anything you want. Like it should just not be typical breathing. You could be like, hey, I'll take 1 breath in and exhale 2 breaths out. Inhale for a count of 1, exhale for the count of 2. Or you could be like, I'm gonna inhale for 1 count, hold for 2 seconds, exhale. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is it is not a natural breathing pattern. It should be a breathing pattern which is conscious. So I want you to pre-decide what is the breathing pattern you would use, and first kind of create this breathing pattern and keep it in the back of your mind, right? For whenever an urge to smoke comes through. And once the urge to smoke comes through, I want you to breathe using this pattern, whatever is the pattern you've decided before. So let me say it so that it's clearer. Let's say on day 1, decide this is what is the breathing pattern you'll do whenever you get an urge to smoke. So in my case, it was 2 breaths in, holding for 4 breaths out, and holding for 2. You don't have to do something complicated. You can do something easier, or you can do something even more complicated, but you have to do the same pattern every time you get an urge to smoke. Pre-decide this, maybe in day 1 or even on day 0, and know exactly what is the breathing pattern you'll do when you get an urge to smoke, right? Now, whenever you get an urge to smoke, stop where you are. You don't have to close your eyes. You don't have to do anything extra special. If you're walking, you don't have to do anything. Just do this conscious breathing pattern. You can do it while walking, you can do it while sitting down, you can do it while you're watching the TV. You don't have to interrupt what you're doing, but just go inward on your breath and do a pre-decided breathing pattern. The second thing I want you to do is, once you've done the breathing pattern, I want you to kind of observe what triggered your smoking cue. As in, it could be like, hey, I woke up and it was my coffee time and I started having coffee and I came up with this overwhelming urge to smoke. Or it could be like, I finished dinner and I felt full and I thought it was the time to smoke, because that's when I usually have my, let's say, post-dinner smoke. So I want you to make note of what was that cue which kind of made you want to stop smoke. And I want you to take note of how long it took till this cue went away. Now, I strongly recommend, even though it's not mandatory, I strongly recommend you capture this in a note-taking tool, or if you're more of an analytical mindset, Excel or a notebook. But for the initial 2 to 3 weeks, whenever you get these cues, I would suggest capture them so that you can kind of refer to them. And why I am saying so is because in these 2-3 days, you will notice that you get cues left, right, and center. Anything, you will find that you get cues when you kind of come out of a shower, when you go into the shower, hundreds of things. So it will kind of start helping you identify what are the cues you have to extinguish. And I'll do an entire video on cues and extinguishing them once we get through these 3 days together. But for now, I just want you to kind of learn this word cue and kind of start observing what a cue is. A cue is when, something happens, you get the urge to smoke. So, and you'll also find that in this time, which is probably the worst time in terms of, let's say, physical addiction and efforts, it'll probably take you something between 4 and 5 minutes before a particular cue goes away, or a particular, let's say, urge to smoke goes away. And why I'm asking you to take note of this for the next 1 or 2 weeks is, once we get to week 6, week 8, week 10, week 12, you will find that, this urge goes away in a matter of seconds. But I want you to observe now that it probably takes 4 or 5 minutes. In some cases, even in case of outliers, like very special ones, like the coffee one or the dinner one, in my case, it took 10-15 minutes. But it does go away. The thing is, what the point I'm trying to make is, the strongest of, let's say, the urges to smoke will go away once you kind of take some time out on it. And that kind of, let's say, that is our kind of big first step which we're going to do as part of day 2 and day 3. I think as we kind of go along in this journey, we'll systematize this work. We will kind of make it better. We probably won't be writing down any of the cues or how long the cue lasts after after you pass week 3. But for day 2 and day 3, because the cue and because kind of the urge to smoke comes through so strongly, it kind of really helps if you observe this and kind of start getting some initial data points. Awesome, great. So that was it for today. To summarize, day 2 and day 3 are super hard because there is physical withdrawal, because your mind is starting to play tricks and wants to get you back into smoking. And usually because you kind of, that initial excitement is kind of worn away, you've gone back to the real world. If possible, try to do some extended physical work, yard work, long hikes, making a big meal. But regardless, please start doing 2 things. Please decide a breathing exercise you will do whenever you would get an urge to smoke, and start doing that breathing exercise whenever you get the urge to smoke. And if possible, journal what is the situation or the context in which you got this urge to smoke and how long this urge lasted. This was kind of also our introduction to cues, or which kind of is kind of the most psychological aspect of smoking. And the work we'll do after this video will really focus on, identifying, extinguishing cues. Extinguishing some cues will be much harder than the others, but that is for the next few videos. Best of luck on your journey. Remember, if you get through these next couple of days, you've increased the chance that you quit permanently significantly. And I'm not able to put a number here, but most of the people who falter don't actually falter on day 1. Many of them actually falter on day 2 and day 3. Stay strong, use your willpower, and I'll see you in the next video.